India Today, and in this special edition of the news broadcast from war-ravaged Ukraine, I am in Mykolaiv, and my colleague Gaurav Sawant, who's in Kyiv, we will get you the unparalleled stories of war.
Three reporters, unmissable broadcast.
In Irpin, if you look around,
Smashed glass.
Fortunately, this red square.
From Kyiv to Borodyanka to Mykolaiv. Every detail of war from ground zero. Uncompromising reports from the war zone.
Saw it bomb.
front lines of
Fearless on the front line.
Now, Mykolaiv wears a very ghostly look, but there are horrific stories unfolding on ground zero in Borodyanka. My colleague Gaurav Sawant gets you more.
Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelenskyy says that the horror in Borodyanka is worse than what was witnessed in Bucha. India Today gets you ground reports from the strife-torn territory. This is an area that suffered intense air, artillery, rocket and missile attacks. There was a race against time to save lives. More than 25 bodies have been dug out of a building that was damaged, decimated, destroyed completely in an aerial strike that took place between the 24th of February and the 31st of March. Ukraine claims war crimes were carried out against the people of Ukraine, against unarmed civilians, like in Bucha, even in Borodyanka.
Another town ravaged by Russia, another town ruined beyond repair. First, it was Bucha on the outskirts of Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, and now another suburb of Borodyanka. The city is close to Kyiv, where a deserted look of death and destruction. The Bucha images shocked us all. The images of bodies lying strewn around and mass graves left the world numb. But it's not the only town to tell such a tale of horror so close to the Ukrainian capital. This is Borodyanka, where authorities fear hundreds of civilians' bodies are lying underneath all this rubble and debris around the city.
The work to clear the rubble in Borodyanka has begun. It's significantly more dreadful there. Even more victims from the Russian occupiers. In other towns in the Kyiv region, after the withdrawal of Russian troops. The same cruelty, the same terrible crimes.
India Today is the first and so far only Indian channel to have visited this Kyiv suburb. And we found a trail of destruction in every possible street, in every direction.
You've heard about what happened at Hostomel or Bucha and Irpin. Berdyansk is again as badly, if not worse, hit in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. This is the first time that Ukraine army soldiers are also coming in here, assessing the damage that was done during the 43 days of conflict so far. The Russian forces, of course, have retreated beyond the Belarus border. But look at the damage that was done. Trucks, fuel trucks, armored personnel carriers, tanks and APCs, troop carriers, all lying burnt on the main road of Berdyansk.
Ukrainian authorities have reported 26 bodies were found under two ruined buildings in the city so far.
Kyiv region, we find in Kyiv region, Mykolaiv, Borodyanka, Bucha, Hostomel, Irpin, we found 650 dead bodies. From them, it is 40 dead bodies, only kids.
Rescue operations are continuing on a war footing in these parts, with hope fading every minute of civilians being pulled alive from what was once their home.
This building, according to information given by people here, was destroyed in an airstrike and emergency workers could not get here in time. But some locals say there could be survivors here, and that is why the focus is on this building, one of the many that have been targeted here in Borodyanka. So healthcare workers and emergency workers are all here standing by amidst locals saying that they've heard voices coming from inside this rubble, and that is why their effort is to try and get into this area. They still say it's a race against time to save lives. With cameraman Lalit Mohan Joshi in Borodyanka, Ukraine, Gaurav Sawant for India Today.
Well, that's Gaurav getting you all the ground reports from up north. We are in south, and all eyes are on Volodymyr Zelenskyy. A comedian turned politician, Zelenskyy has been at it. He's won some, he's lost some, but he's leading his country by example. As many towns and cities turn ghostly, he has managed to retain them. And what's more, he's even caused a de-escalation of the Russian troops. Here's a report.
This picture says it all. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, weathered by the war, his face shadowed by the destruction on his country. Unlike the Russian president, whose war machine has spent the last month and a half on his territory, Zelenskyy remains firmly in view, appearing in public daily, broadcasting to the world, and being heard. Zelenskyy's campaign for global help has resulted in some gains. A Russian course correction and de-escalation. Huge diplomatic support from NATO, the European Union and the West. And a military that has been flooded with more advanced weaponry than Ukraine could ever have dreamed of. But it has also forced Zelenskyy, for all his high-profile grandstanding, to rethink most of his original strategies. NATO membership is practically off the table. The rebel areas of Ukraine are up for negotiation. And Zelenskyy is repeatedly seeking a summit with the man who wants him toppled from the presidency. But as Zelenskyy navigates what could be the bigger and more destructive phase of the war, he has crushing and immediate questions to answer. The grinding conflict that has raised so many of Zelenskyy's cities to the ground is now a terrifying burden on Zelenskyy's next moves. Who will repair and resurrect Ukraine's destroyed landscape? As his nemesis gets set for the most brutal assaults in eastern Ukraine, what more will Zelenskyy need to give up to get Russia to stop? These are the questions that deepen the lines on Zelenskyy's face. A wartime president faces an existential crisis, both personally and for the integrity of his country. Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, Mykolaiv has been continuously under attack. What you see behind me are trees chopped off to stop the Russian advances. Now, the India Today team is the only crew that is in the southern part of the city, and there are reports that the Russians are using cluster bombs to bombard the residential areas. As the southern part of Ukraine remains the prime target for Russia, India Today is tracking city after city. From Odessa, we've reached Mykolaiv, and standing outside the railway station that bears testimony to the attack that happened here. Smashed glasses, a station without passengers, deserted railway station with no trains chugging out from here, and the governor, none other than the governor of Mykolaiv, informed the citizens that this railway station has been bombed. just look at this picture. It actually is a very, very sensitive picture that we are showing. We will not tell you which part of the city this really is in, but smashed glasses into smithereens. The entire building is deserted, cordoned off by the police, and this area was bombed. People were asking why the railway station was not functioning, and now the services, bus services, have been pressed into action. But the strategic importance of Mykolaiv actually is the reason why it is in prime focus, because importantly Mykolaiv is the last barrier. It's the last barrier standing between Russia and Odessa, and Odessa is actually of great strategic and economic importance. If Odessa falls, then Ukraine is cut out from the sea, and that's one reason that this road that leads from Mykolaiv to Odessa is very important for the Russians, and that's one reason that not far away from here, about 50 kilometers from here, Kherson has been taken, and the fight continues on the borders of the city that remains very precariously placed. With video journalist Parminder Sharma, this is Mosmi Singh in Mykolaiv for India Today. Amidst these broken pieces of glass, you'll find these metal pieces as well. Now, these are part of the cluster bombs that were dropped at Mykolaiv railway station. And not only Mykolaiv railway station, other parts also had these kind of attacks where more than 60 people were injured and dozens were killed. Now, cluster bombs are actually internationally banned because of the effect. If you see, they really don't, it is a far-fetched effect, an indiscriminate effect, and that's one reason that cluster bombs are considered very inhuman. If you look at the railway station and the shattered glasses, you will come to know how the hollow shells actually break into several hundreds of pieces like these, and go in all directions. Importantly, the administration has put the city on high alert, even as repeatedly the governor, the mayor are talking about how these ammunitions, these cluster shells are being used that are causing maximum damage to the civilians. With video journalist Parminder Sharma, this is Mosmi Singh in Mykolaiv for India Today. Ukrainian foreign minister has pledged that an alleged video showing Ukrainian soldiers killing Russian prisoners of war will be thoroughly investigated. In the video, soldiers are seen with patches of Ukrainian flags chanting "Glory to Ukraine." Now that video has turned viral. Let's watch this report that comes from the village where the alleged video was shot. The cry for a united opposition against Russia grows louder by the day. Now the Russians are fighting the demon of Putin's propaganda and detention threats in their own way. Many left the country before the war broke out. Others are still protesting despite threat to their family and friends. Watch this report. The war in Ukraine is about a month and a half old. Russian President Vladimir Putin, in fact, sorry viewers for that fumble, launched that offensive on 24th February, hoping that it will be a swift victory. But it wasn't to be. It's been weeks, and Ukraine's zeal has forced him to change his strategy in 43 days. Watch this report.
On 24th March, a month into the war, Ukraine's navy sank the Russian ship Orks in the Sea of Azov. The attack destroyed a ship laden with supplies. It also drove other Russian ships back into the sea and damaged Borodyanka port. It was a crucial blow to Putin's military plans.
The fact that the war has been going on as long as it has without it being a decisive victory yet for Russia gives hope to Ukraine. I think in some respects this action will backfire on Putin, because Ukraine might even be closer to the West, which is exactly his opposite outcome that he desired.
Putin's special operation in Ukraine was supposed to end in a swift victory. It was never supposed to cross 30 days. But what he didn't take into account was the zeal of Ukrainians to fight for their country.
I've taken the decision to conduct a special military operation. Its purpose is to protect people who have been subject to abuse and genocide by the Kiev regime for 8 years. And to do this, we will strive to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine.
Things surely did not go as Putin planned. Russia launched its attack from two sides on 24th February. While one part of its troops moved in from Belarus and attacked Ukraine from north, another approached from the eastern flank along the Donbas separatists. After standing outside Kyiv for days, the Russian military announced a strategic change in plans. This was exactly 5 days after Ukraine's marine attack on the Sea of Azov. But the retreat came at a cost. Bodies littered all over Bucha, the most horrific episode of the war. Ukraine claimed it was a war crime. The world joined in. Russia denied a hand in the killings, saying its troops had left Bucha days before the bodies were found. But the world backed Ukraine. More sanctions were imposed on Russia by the US, UK and others, and more arms were pledged to it. An even more isolated Putin is now fully focused on Ukraine's east and south, hoping somehow to salvage his pride. Bureau Report, India Today.
The war is on. Attacks and counter-attacks continue. Viewers, we are standing here for you to tell you the truth. Mykolaiv, Gaurav Sawant in Kyiv, my video journalist Parminder Sharma and our entire team will continue our relentless coverage to bring you the truth. It's time to wrap up this special bulletin. Keep watching India Today for news and updates.